We get the first reveals of the mysterious fortune, and it's of course none other than Gold Paladin, but their thunder got stolen immediately moments after they revealed and confirmed our thoughts and beliefs for the upcoming extra booster set for Narukami, Shadow Paladin, and Aqua Force. Yes, there's a lot of big stuff coming our way, so let's update! Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfight, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and we finally have something exciting to reveal and to announce, and as well as to talk about, as last week's update or reveal stream was quite lackluster with no new information. But this time we've got a bunch of new things to be revealed. Of course, we are now diving into a brand new set, the Mysterious Fortune, the new extra booster set for Great Nature, Gold Paladin, as well as Neonectar. And we start off with the new reveals for Gold Paladin, and we've of course got their new VR, which we already got a sneak peek at the end of an episode a couple of weeks ago, where they already teased what the skill could do, and with the whole thing that the card had a end of game effect, which is pretty new to Vanguard, and not with the fact that it's ending the game. No, this effect will last until the end of the game instead of till the end of a turn or the next turn of your opponent. So that's a new thing. But also we got some extra Gold Paladin cards revealed, so we have a glimpse of what this new support wave is going to be, as we're slowly drifting away from the Ezel main line that we're used to with the previous support cards. But besides the Gold Paladin support cards, we also got a glimpse and insight for the upcoming extra booster set 12 that's after Melody in this December, and we're talking about the extra booster set in January, where we have the support for Shadow Paladin, Narukami, and Aqua Force. And they showcase the artwork as well as the direction of each clan support wave is heading towards. And oh boy, things are going to be very exciting. At least if you play one of those three clans, especially if you played them during the GR or way back. So without further ado, let's jump right into these news and card updates so I can get you up to speed of what has been revealed today. So first off, we're going to take a look at the new Gold Paladin cards, and I'll kick it off with a new grade 2 that is Knight of Phosphorensis, or how you want to pronounce that word, Langley. And it's got a interesting skill, as its skills continues a rearguard circle. It gets all the effect below according to the number of rearguards you called this turn. 2 or more, your opponent cannot intercept. So this means if you call 2 or more units this turn, and it doesn't matter if you call them through a Vex or just from hand, if you just call 2 cards, if this thing is placed, your opponent cannot intercept. But if you place 4 or more rearguards this turn, it gets a power increase of 5k. The 5k is not really that significant, and placing 4 cards on the field for only 5k might sound bad, but it's a 14k beater. Meaning, if you put it on an Excel 1, and Excel 1 is going to be important in the new Gold Paladin, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, it will turn into a 24k attacker, or a 24k beater, meaning it hit over defensive trigger. And the current Gold Paladin build, with Ezel and all the superior writing and all that kind of stuff, tends to fall behind against the defense trigger, as most of their attacks are just 9k or 19k or 12k. So one defense trigger will stop their entire offensive. This, with Excel 1, will still beat over that, so you have more pressure on the field. Also, the fact that your opponent cannot intercept synergizes really well with some other cards. Also, just forcing your opponent to guard from hand is a good position to be at, especially for an extra clan that starts to poke a lot with slow hitting numbers. So if they're forced to guard with a 15k or 10k shield from hand instead of a 5k interceptor, that can be a really good trade-off. But the main thing what this card tells us and hints us towards is that the new Gold Paladin is gonna call a lot. The fact that they put a restriction of having to call 4 rearguards onto the field for only 5k means it's not really that hard to fulfill that condition. So we have to keep in, so we can only guess how much superior calling the new Gold Paladin is going to be. So this is going to be an exciting time for very aggressive Gold Paladin players that don't really want to play the Ezel right chain anymore. But it wasn't the only grade 2 that we got revealed, as we also got a triple R grade 2 revealed that was also showcased in the anime, and I'm referring to Liberator of Flute Eskret. And its ability is auto and Vanguard the rearguard circle. When placed, if your Vanguard is Knight of Fury Agravaine, that's the new VR, or Liberty of Flute Escalade, that's himself of course, look at the top card of your deck, call to the rearguard circle, And then we have cost, counter +1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So basically his skill says when you ride it, you can get a free call out of it. When you call it to the Vanguard circle and he is your Vanguard or you have the VR's Vanguard, you get another free call out of it. And then you can, if you want, counter +1 to give it 5k. Once again, that can turn it into a 24 beater on an Axel 1. So depending where you call it, you might want to or might don't want to give it the extra power for the counterblast. This is a free +1. Free! That is always going to be powerful, and this will help you even easier to attain multiple calls into the field. So this also synergizes with the other grade 2, the rare that we just talked about, because just placing this on the Vanguard circle and you get the free call out of it, that's already 2 calls. So you just activate the first ability at least from the other grade 2. That's a good synergy already in itself. This is going to probably be a staple or a key card for the new deck, and maybe even for Gold Paladin for a long time, as getting free calls, yes, it may be from the top deck so you can screw yourself over, but with the fact that Axel 1 or Axel 2, at least the Axel circle with the power exists, can probably turn any card that you call into a potential attacker that at least forces a intercept, but with the combination with the grade 2, they cannot do that, so they force at least a card from your opponent's hand or they take a damage. So, yes, this card is going to be pretty amazing if you ask me, and it probably is going to be. And then we get to the VR, and we already had an idea what it does, but now we can have a good glimpse of how this functions and what it potentially can mean for Gold Paladin, as this is their new boss monster, as that is Knight of Fury, Agravaine. And its abilities are auto and Vanguard circle when it attacks, cost, counter +1, and put all your rearguards into the soul. Look at the same number of cards from the top of your deck as the number of rearguards you call this turn. Call any number from among them to the Vanguard circle and shuffle your deck. So basically what this can do is refresh your entire board for 1 counterblast. That's pretty damn good. And the fact that you do it on attack means you can attack with everything. That itself is already a pretty powerful skill in its own regard. Yes, you need to call a lot of cards to the field to use its skill, but if you have things like Escarat that can get a free call out of nowhere, this thing is going to be pretty easy to attain and to fulfill to superior call a lot of cards. Also, in probably the first turn when you ride it, you call an entire field. You can check a lot of cards on top of your deck, and you don't have to call every single card. So if you see a lot of triggers or cards you don't want to call, you can then selectively, alright, I'm going to only call these 3 cards, and that's about it. This also synergizes really well with the other grade 2, with the Continue skill. So if you attack with it, you already called a couple of cards. This can call another couple of cards, and then you maybe lock your opponent out of intercepting, so they can potentially not intercept your Vanguard or the attacks afterwards. So another good synergy card. And depending on how good other cards are going to get that will gain more power if you superior call a lot of other cards, this card can skill. But then we have its second ability, and this is where the whole controversy came to be, as its second ability is Act on Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 12 cards until the end of the fight. Your opponent can only call normal units, including superior calls. Alright, so what this means is that if you resolve this skill, your opponent can no longer put trigger units, so all your 16 triggers, onto the field. They cannot call them to the Vanguard circle, they can also not call them to the Guardian circle. And superior calling is also prohibited. So for premium players, doing some kind of interaction with Slay Me Flare to call his grade 0 PG onto the Guardian circle, that will not work as well. You cannot no longer do that. But another thing it also does is it limits you to only play normal units. So if you're against a Protect deck, they can no longer use their Protect 1 markers. Meaning if they chose to Protect 1 gift, the moment you resolve that, their entire gift thing falls apart. They can no longer use it, it has 0 value from that point onward. This is a very powerful skill, if you can manage to get it off. And that is where I put the line on this card. This thing is insane. Your opponent will be locked out of a lot of options, as they probably have no defense left. They can probably not get some cheesy calls out of it, or do something other kind of plays. That's all locked. And they're probably gonna die the moment you resolve the skill, as you're gonna multi-attack a lot at the same time. However, there is a major problem with this card, or at least there are 2 major problems. One, your opponent can play around this to some extent in the early game. If they know you're playing this card, or they've seen it, or you just ridden up to the first time, you're just gonna use all your Great Zeros and all your Sentinels or your Protect markers to get at least value out of them while you can, and you keep yourself at a low damage. That's one thing. But the second thing, and that's just from the Gold Paladin players' perspective, this card is really, really slow right now, as you need to soul dash 12. Meaning, if you normal ride up, you have your grade 0, your grade 1, and your grade 2, and say you're gonna rewrite your grade 3. So, your 4th, let's talk about your turn 4. You have 4 cards in soul by default. Then if you went to turn 3 also in this thing, and you resolved its skill, let's say you have a full board. That's 6 cards, because you have 1 extra marker and 4 rear guards. 6 cards go to the soul. That's 4 plus 6 is 10. If you went all out, you put 10 cards in your soul. You're too short. Meaning you need to wait another turn, resolve its skill again, so you need to put more cards into the soul. And to do that, you need to call more cards during the turn, so you're forcing yourself to call more cards from your hand, meaning you're minusing. So it looks like to be turn 5. And turn 5 is really slow, especially if you're using a lot of cards from hand to enable this. And also keep in mind, a lot of cards in Gold Paladin uses soul. We have Sacramore that does synergize with this, with the amount of cards you're calling and putting things on the field, but that costs a soul. Din Drain, for a counter charge, costs a soul, and this is going to look like it's counterblasting a lot, so Din Drain might be used, so that's another soul you're needing. This looks like to be a very slow card. However, that's with the reveals right now. It can happen that the new Gold Paladin cards are going to get more soul charge cards. So we get more engines to soul charge. On how good we can soul charge and set up this card, as how it stands now, if we go all out and we get everything that we want, we ride it on grade 3, get a full field and put it all into the soul, then ride it up again, we still need to wait one more turn before we can use its skills. That's 5 turns. 5 turns is long, especially for an Excel deck. So currently this skill looks to be the same as we had for Gear Chronicle with Mystery Flare with the extra turn. That looks insane, but you need to work your ass off to get that ability live. And in Gear Chronicle's case, it's also around turn 4 or turn 5 when you hopefully get that thing off. And that's not wrecking the meta, as though that skill is really powerful. This skill might be even more powerful in that regard, with all the multi-attacking as well, as your opponent probably cannot even guard any of your attacks anymore. So, but once again, it's a very late game skill in a very early game aggressive archetype. So, I'm curious of how this will play out. We have to see for the more support in the future. So don't make a decision of if this card is good or not, or at least this ability, as we need to wait until we get more support. As it stands now, it's way too slow, and will win some games, but it's not your main win condition. That's not what it is. Its main win condition is its first ability. That's strong enough, if you ask me. The fact that you can multi-attack and have so many lines of plays, insane. But what's also insane are the next reveals that we're gonna go in, and that's the things that we got for the extra booster set after the Melody or the other Bermuda Triangle set. That's Extra Booster 12, the team that will not lose. I don't know if that's the actual name of the set, but that's the quote of Kanzaki that states, a Shadow Paladin team built with Narukami and Aquaforce will not lose. That's his main quote for this support wave. However, that's not important. The important thing is what's in the content of that set, as they revealed the main boss units for those clans for the set. So basically their VRs, as well as the direction of this new support line for their clans. So what we got revealed was this image. Yes, the big one is Claret Sword, and the 2 smaller ones are Last Card Revonn for Aquaforce, a very old unit, but for my personal take, I'm more interested to the one that is left to it. That is my boy, Vanquisher. So yes, we're finally going to get Vanquisher in Standard, and hopefully this thing will do wonders for Narukami Premium, as we can use all the help that we can get. We now know the boss monsters of this set, but we also know the direction, as for Shadow Paladin, for Claret Sword, they revealed that, of course, in old Claret Sword fashion, it's gonna be centered around grade 1s. It's gonna be focusing around the grade 1 strategy, but it will also have a boost for Blast the Dark, so maybe we get more support for the Mortal Phantom Blast the Dark build, or just Blast the Dark in general. And this is not really to my big surprise, as Claret Sword used to work with grade 1s as well in the past, as that was the whole thing for G era Shadow Paladin, but I'm curious and I hope that my expectations are confirmed later down the road, is that I hope this thing is gonna be the boss monster of the new standard mechanic for Shadows. I hope it's gonna be the boss monster of the 5k grade 1 mechanic that we got with Nemain and Swordbreaker and also the other grade 2s that with Denma, for example. I hope this thing is gonna synergize with that mechanic and that's gonna be the actual grade 3 VR boss monster for the whole mechanic to make a separate thing about it. I think that would be really awesome if they do that. It doesn't have to be per se, as they can just make the 5k engine just a generic engine for Shadow Paladin that can be used in any build. But it would be really awesome if they're gonna make a separate build, as we see more and more of the support for 5ks as we get more sets later down the road, especially in the latest set with Phantasmal Seed Restoration. We saw a lot of support for 5k power units, so I'm curious if that's going to be. As for Aquaforce, for last card Revonn, they revealed this is going to be different, as they're going to reduce the opponent's Vanguard's power, and abilities are going to activate accordingly to the opponent's Vanguard power, as well as more support for Maelstrom. So on both sides, I'm really excited. For once, Maelstrom support. I'm also always a big fan of Maelstrom, so I'm really happy they're going to give more support to them. But second, this reduction of power we have seen with other clans, so this is really unique to give it to Aquaforce. But what's funny enough is, it will synergize with a card that we just got. It's the perfect support for Pleb Bomber. This thing will probably be a fit for the deck, and I'm really excited and curious to see how this card is gonna work its way into this new build for last card Revonn, so I'm curious for that. But what I'm most excited about is the new thing for Narukami, as I've been talking with a lot of friends of what Narukami can do to make it more relevant in Premium. And there was one thing that came to mind. We already had binding from the field, we have binding from the drop zone, but why didn't the new stride that we got in the Premium Collection just bind directly from hand? And apparently, they heard my wishes, as that is what the new Narukami support is going to do, as the new Narukami support will bind from both players' hands. So I'm curious of what this is going to be. So whenever this set is going to drop for Narukami, we know that we can at least say the following words. Your front row isn't safe. Then your back row wasn't safe. Even your drop zone will not be safe from us. And now, even your hand is not safe for our Thunderstrike. Can you see that I'm excited? So yeah, these new reveals for this set are probably one of the exciting things that we got in a long time. These cards were fan favorite of a lot of players. Well, maybe not last card Revonn for Aquaforce, as a lot of players were hoping for Velios. But depending on what the card can do and what it will do, I think it has a lot of potential. And that's basically everything that we got in this reveal stream this week. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about these new card reveals for Gold Paladin, this new mechanic for them, or at least this new focus that they're gonna get, as well as the introduction and reveals for the new support wave for Narukami, Shadow Paladin, and Aquaforce, as well as this new direction they're going to take. As there is a lot to be excited about. I'm very curious of what your opinion is about this new information. So let me know in the comments down below all your thoughts and opinions. As always, I want to thank my supporters over at Patreon for making this video and everything's happening on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, then you can simply do that by subscribing and hitting the bell button to be updated for future videos, liking the video, as well as sharing it with all your friends. But if you want to help us a little bit more directly, then you can head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one!